Hello and welcome to another episode of the How to Create VR tutorial series, where you learn by watching other VR, AR, and MR professionals create the magic. I'm Marcelo Lewin, an immersive technologies evangelist, creator, producer, and the guy behind howtocreatevr.com. My guest creator today is James Baicoianu, a web and game developer since the late 90s. He's currently principal engineer at JanusVR, working primarily on Janus Web, an in-browser WebVR content creation and sharing app. Today, James will be taking an existing template room created in Janus Web and decorating it for a Halloween party using drag-and-drop 3D objects, with the final VR experience viewable in any WebVR-ready browser. But before we get started, if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and please remember to subscribe to my channel. It will only take you a second, but the more subscribers I have, the easier it will be to get great guests just like James. James, welcome.
Thank you. Good to be here.
We had your other James, the founder of JanusVR, right?
That's right.
On our podcast where we spoke a lot about JanusVR, what it is. And today you're going to be showing us basically how to create VR worlds using Janus Web. And we're going to get into more of the details of how to do that. But before we do that, why don't you give us a little bit of your background?
Sure. So I've been a web developer for about 20 years now. So that's my primary interest, kind of building frameworks and tools that make it easy for people to build websites. And I've also been interested in building 3D worlds ever since I first discovered the community that was around building maps in Quake and Doom and all these 3D games. So I've been a bit of an amateur game developer since then. And in the past few years, the web technology for being able to view and render these 3D objects has come a long way. So I've been working hard on building a web-based game engine, which brings my two worlds together.
And what piqued your interest specifically about VR?
VR is just kind of the next evolution in computing and in kind of gaming especially, but really information interaction as well. I think that we've gotten used to displaying information on 2D screens. We've gotten really good at that in the past 20, 30 years. VR is just the next step in my mind. Just make it easier to work with three-dimensional data when you're actually able to kind of go into the world rather than just kind of look at it through the monitor.
Very cool. So before we jump in, maybe you can give a really quick overview of what's the difference between JanusVR, JanusML, JanusWeb, and Vesta.
Yeah, sure. So JanusVR is our kind of umbrella name for all of our technology. Started off as a project from James McRae, who was going to school at the University of Toronto, and this was his PhD thesis project, was to build JanusVR. Started off as a native client, so you would download and install this application, and he invented a new kind of markup language, just kind of very similar to HTML or XML, where you just place objects within a 3D space, and the native client would render those. JanusWeb is my creation. When I found out about JanusVR, the company, I'd already been working on a 3D engine for the web for a few years. And I built an online WebVR arcade, and I wanted to make it multiplayer. So in that, basically ended up building a client for JanusVR that runs entirely in a web browser, and that's what we now call JanusWeb. In addition to that, we have Vesta, which is our hosting service. So anybody who would like to create WebVR content can create an account on vesta.janusvr.com, and we'll host that content for you and give you a nice URL where it lives, and you can share that with others.
I see. That makes sense. Well, you're going to show us how to create this world, and because we're close to Halloween, we're going to decorate it in Halloween, right? Using 3D objects. So why don't you get started? I'll jump in if I have questions.
Sure. So here we are just on our homepage, janusvr.com, and I'll show you, we'll just jump right over to Vesta. So once you're in Vesta here, so basically these are all different rooms that people in our community have made. We've got thousands of these rooms. You can kind of click through and view any of these. I'm going to just jump straight to the one that I want to build from. So someone has gone through and made a bunch of these beautiful rooms available. I'll show you. We'll start with the school gym. So within Vesta, you can kind of load these up and just kind of click right in and start exploring. So you see here a nice empty gym ready for us to do whatever we want with.
So question for you, if this was a web VR ready, which this looks like Chrome, right, which it is, we can put on our headset, and instead of moving around using the arrows, we can just move around like teleporting in VR itself?
Exactly.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So we like this room. So I'm going to go over here and hit the clone button, and that will make my own copy of this. So it's, it says here school gym clone. I'm going to rename that to Halloween Party. And so you can see here over on the right, this is the basic markup that defined that room. It's really simple. Basically, there's two assets that we've defined. So one refers to the level geometry, and then one is collision model built for that geometry. And you can see here this little markup where it kind of pulls that object into the room and kind of associates it with the collision ID. In this case, he created it with a lighting false. He kind of had the lighting pre-baked into the level. But for our world, I want to give us kind of some nice spooky lighting. So I'm going to turn lighting on for this world. I'm going to turn down ambient lighting.
And this is JML right here, right?
Yeah, so this is our markup, JML. You can edit this directly if you're comfortable. Like if you're a web developer, this should feel very familiar. This is kind of like the bare bones way of editing a world, just directly, editing the markup file. So I'm going to go ahead and we've turned lighting on, and I'm going to add a light of our own. So light, and you can set all these properties. I'm going to set, it's going to be a light that casts shadow. It has an intensity. I've experimented and found out that 8 works about well for this world. Give it a range. And I'm going to give it an ID just so we can reference it later.
For scripting, I'm assuming using JavaScript?
Exactly, yeah. So that should be that. And I'm going to go ahead and add one additional object, which is just a ground collider. It just makes it a little bit easier as we're running around so we don't go through the floor. So collision ID equals cube scale. All right.
So those pertain to X, Y, Z.
Exactly. So these are kind of, values that I got a little typo there. Object. There we go. So, now that we've set up these basic objects, I'm going to, we've saved the room, and that's given us our URL. I can go ahead and copy this, and we'll bring it over into my main client. So here we go. Here's the room with the shadow. The light's turned down a little bit. You can see the shadow there, but it's not. Let's move this light around a little bit. So to do that, I'm going to drop into admin mode. I do that by pressing F1, and that gives us this nice kind of view of the whole world. And we've got this shadow light, and I can go ahead and grab it and just move it around. So let me put it around here. Nice.
Will this automatically update your JML?
Actually, that's a good point. I need to set one more flag here. So as it is right now, these edits are just kind of, if anyone else were in the room with me, they would see them happening, but they're not saved.
They're not committed, yeah.
But what I can do, this is a Vesta Premium feature, is I can actually enable this sandbox mode.
Okay.
And so I turn that on and then go ahead and save again. And now, if I go back here, I'll refresh just so we're back on a
right. So any changes you make will now be reflected in the JanusML.
Should be, yes.
Okay.
So let's go ahead and move that light again.
Right. We never make promises, right?
Yeah. I save that, I move that, and now if I refresh, should be in the right place. Yeah.
Okay. So and then if we go back to your JML other window, will it show there? Do you have to? Oh, there's an update.
It should be. I refresh it and it should start.
Yeah, there you go.
I see it's filled in a few of these other parameters.
Right. Very cool.
All right. So now that we've got this room, I'm going to go ahead and invite my friend over so I can just send him this link and he should be able to join us. So anyway, while we're waiting for him, we can go ahead and start adding things to the world. So one of the best ways to kind of find content for building in Janus Web, we have over here on the right, this little inventory tab you can pull open. So you can see here we've got a bunch of primitives. So, I can drag and drop a cube, add it to the scene. I can rotate with mouse wheel and click to place it. Any of these other objects can just be kind of dragged right into the scene, same thing. Or we also have support for Google Poly. So let's go ahead and find something here nice and spooky. Nice Halloween themed.
And while you're doing that, the URL you shared with your friend, not for him to view, which of course he can view, but also to edit along with you, right?
Exactly. So he can jump in and, he'll be in this world with me, and any changes I make to the world, he'll see, and vice versa.
Question on that. Can he move independently of you? Meaning that if you're moving to the left, but he's going to work on the right side of the room, can he move around that area and not affect you? Or whatever you're seeing and moving, he sees and moves?
Oh, no, we're each our own client, so we can be working on different areas of the room.
So you could have a world where you say, look, you're going to take this section and work on it. I'm going to take this section and work on it. But then you can turn around and check out what's going on with each of you.
Exactly.
That's really cool.
So let's get started with this little graveyard here. So I can just drag it off into the world, and you see it's got a little loading indicator. There's my shadow there. Some of these models, so these are all from Google Blocks, so they're of varying sizes and quality. Let's see how quickly this one comes in. There it is. So you can see here, it's a little small, so let's go ahead and drop into the edit mode and just scale them up a little bit. So I can do that. I select it.
And what was the keyboard shortcut for the edit mode?
Right now it's F1. As we're kind of integrating this more with Vesta, we're probably going to have like a button that you press that just kind of...
But for now it's F1. Okay.
Yeah. And then, so we've got, by default, you select the object and it shows this little transform widget. So up here we have controls where you can switch it now to rotation or scale. So I'll go ahead and scale that up a little bit. And maybe bring him up out of the floor and back a little bit. Let's see how that looks. I'll scale it up a little more, just give us a little more room to play here. And up. And I'm going to flip it 180 degrees just because I like that other side better. There you go. And you can see here also we have, you can inspect all the various properties here associated with this object. So if I wanted to edit some of these directly, I could go in and, change the lighting parameter or, set the rotation manually if I want to do, an exact 180 degrees, anything like that.
Right. If you don't want it to receive shadows or cast shadows, you can turn all that off. Yeah, cool.
Yeah. And so you can see here, now I can press F1 to turn admin mode off, and I'm back to my kind of first-person view, and I can walk around in this. And let's see, let's go ahead and add a few more objects. Let's find a spider. It'd be nice for a Halloween theme. So we got a whole bunch to choose from here. This one looks pretty nice. Let's give that a try. We can go ahead and move him up. There we go.
By the way, that taking off sound we're hearing, that's your laptop, just for people that are wondering. That's what happens when you're pushing the limits with 3D and VR.
That's right. So
that is a pretty creepy one.
Yeah, especially the shadows definitely help there. Bring him down so he's actually in contact with the ground. There we go. There we go. And we can rotate him so he's kind of looking out at us. And there we go. So he's in the scene now. Yeah, he's definitely a spooky one.
I would not want to wake up to that.
Yeah. So another thing we can do here, so we showed off dragging 3D objects. We can also add images. So we went together, one of my friends kind of collected a bunch of these different images of things we can add to just kind of spice this room up a little bit. Let's add some spider webs. So we can just drag those directly out of the Imgur album. Maybe hang these here. Let's see, let's position it a little bit. It's kind of stuck inside the wall, but let's get another one, see if that works better. All right, so let's go ahead and add a skeleton to the scene here. So we've got these spooky skeleton guys here. I can just drag them over and place them, let's put him over here by the entrance. So he's going to greet us in our little graveyard. Let's go see. Oh, there we go. I think my friend has shown up, so he can now help us edit.
Oh, I see. So everybody has an avatar, actually, that's in the scene editing.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, so Jin is, you see two people here. One obnoxious elephant, one Jin. Obnoxious elephant is here in our web client. That's why he's got this nice little floating screen. Okay. Versus Jin is in our native client. So he's got a full avatar. So he can go ahead and start adding things to the scene.
I see. Okay, so then you know, as a creator, you know who's in there too.
Yeah.
So real quick, because this could be a creator, but because JanusWeb is also a viewer client, right? Just for viewing, I could create a prototype, share the link with somebody and go, okay, here, go check it out. Tell me what you think. So they don't have to be creating. They could just be, or even they could even say, no, I want to move this to the right. And they can actually just move it if they want to.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, cool.
So here's my my buddy here. So he's going to start building some objects here. I can actually talk to him on chat here too.
So you have a built-in chat within Janus Web.
That's right.
Okay, cool.
So let's go ahead and just add a few more things to the scene. He's going to keep editing while we work on our parts. So we can each kind of just do our own thing. I can drop that here. Let's rotate it. And we'll move it up a little too.
And you're using keyboard shortcuts for all this?
For this right now, I'm using keyboard shortcuts. I'm using a combination of keyboard shortcuts, mouse wheel to rotate. So basically, once you've added an object to the scene, I can move it around with IJKL, our kind of, object editing. I can change like the snap. So there's, every 0.1 meters, there's every 1 meter. I can move it in and out. Let's just go ahead and then I can scale it as well. So there we go. There we go. Let's go see. Oh, there we go. My buddy's been editing over here as well. So he's added some festive garlands.
That's pretty cool. And he gets to float. So you get, as an avatar, you actually can float around.
Yeah, you can switch between flying and walking mode.
Right. Oh, very cool.
He's editing a few more.
Cool. So while he's editing, you just finished adding a bunch of stuff. Can we now, for example, if I want to make something grabbable, is that something that can be done visually, or do we have to code for that?
Right now, that's something you would need to code for. So we do have the ability to, right now we're working mainly with static assets, but Janus Web supports what we call custom elements, where each of these objects could have JavaScript logic associated with it. So we can kind of give life to, like if we wanted a ghost that followed us around the room, we could create that that logic and define that in JavaScript.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool. So now that when we're done with this, is this published already, or how do we go about publishing it?
Yeah, this is now already published. So if we go over here to a Vesta main page and look at live, you should see there's 3 people in this room right now, and we can go ahead and click this, and join in and see, this is what a regular user would see if they just kind of dropped in. They see all of...
That's pretty cool. And that was really quick, yeah. So these people that are in here can now take it and clone it themselves and then edit it, right?
That's right.
Now you have an edit button here that I see where it says report and edit. Is that for editing the scene, or is that for editing something else?
Well, this is because this is the room that I own. I can click that and then get to the same.
But the other people wouldn't see that.
Right.
Got it. Okay. Well, that's pretty cool. I mean, I can immediately, what comes to mind for me is using this for quickly prototyping something, even if I'm going to do it in Unity, let's say, or Unreal, but to do something very quickly to prototype and get people in there to say, hey, are we going the right way? It seems like a perfect tool for that. What do you see? What do you see as the future for Janus Web and JanusVR?
Well, I think what you said right there is one of our use cases. We actually support the ability to now, this room that we built using Janus Web, we could export that to Unity or to Blender and then use that in our game or whatever else we're building. We have importers as well. So if you built worlds for Unity or you built in Blender, or 3D Studio, anything like that, you can kind of bring those worlds directly into Janus Web as well. Yeah,
makes sense. And you mentioned the sandbox is a cost. What's the cost for, is that like a pro version? What's the cost for something like that?
Yeah, so for that one, I'm set up as a UV Pro member. That's our kind of premium level of access on Vesta. That costs currently $50 a month. We have we have the free account. Basically, I'll show you here. All right, so on Vesta, we have three basic plans available. We have our free plan, gives you up to a gig, 50 meg per file upload. And all of the kind of editing functionality that we just showed off is available as part of the free account. Then we also have like our mid-level $5 a month plan. You get kind of a lot more space to play with, larger files you can work with. You can kind of customize, custom thumbnails, things like that. And then UV Pro is our kind of professional level. And that's where you get the persistent editing, additional unlimited space, and kind of all the features of the previous levels as well.
Yeah, definitely. That's pretty cool stuff, man.
Great. Glad you liked it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I could see it definitely for prototyping. I think even for the free version, right, to prototype. Mm-hmm. So very cool stuff. We can see your friend still editing there, so that's very cool. James, I do want to thank you and your friend for showing us how to use Janus Web and Janus ML and Vesta. Very, very cool tool. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me. It was a pleasure to show it off.
If people want to get a hold of you, James, do you want to give an email?
Sure. BAI@JanusVR.com. Probably the best way to get in contact with me. Or I'm By0 on Twitter.
Well, thanks again, James. And to the rest of you, I'm glad you were here with us. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and remember to click on that subscribe button so that I can get more guests for this tutorial series. If you are ever in the Southern California area, we have a monthly meetup with lots of great VR, AR, and MR presentations. You can join or RSVP for our next meetup at howtocreatevr.com/meetup. Finally, if you're interested in learning more about how to create VR, AR, and MR experiences, please visit howtocreatevr.com. So until the next episode, I'm Marcelo Lewin. Cheers, everyone.